Hello, welcome. My name is Annie. I'm going to be taking you through. Cisco has basically revamped the entire certification portfolio. Are you a CCNA, CCNP, CCIE, and you're wondering how this might affect or impact your career? Stick around and I'll be able to go through that in about 10 to 15 minutes. My name is Anibet Udo, but you could just call me Annie. If you have any comments, you could just mention me in the comment section and I'll be able to reach out to you. I'm CCIE certified, VMware certified also, Juniper and Checkpoint, as you can see there. So let's just jump into it without wasting any much more time. So Cisco decided to change their certification portfolio recently. Presently, I've been in networking for about 8 years, and this is really the largest. And usually along the way, you have Cisco taking their portfolios back and forward, or adding or removing things from the portfolio. But I can say without a doubt that this is the largest change. So why is Cisco trying to do this? Now, a lot of us most of us are already in IT, so you know that the skills and requirements which was needed previously in other during previous eras isn't now enough. So we're talking about things like programmability, automation, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. So because of that, Cisco had to basically shift their certification portfolio to be more modularized and to also more tailor more to the present needs in the market. So yeah, just to quickly highlight some of the changes, one of them is something called incremental recognition. So what Cisco realized was previously, okay, there were mainly three Cisco's. There still are three main Cisco levels of certification: CCNA, CCNP, and the CCIE. Previously, once you write your CCNA, you were just a CCNA, right? But it became quite difficult when you are at the CCNP level. So let's say you were going for something like CCNP security. You need to write about 4 exams before you can become a CCNP, right? But now the challenge was when you were writing exam 1, exam 2, exam 3, exam 4, there was no way you could go and tell a friend or even upload it on social media that you are now at least you've passed one certification, meaning there was no recognition for that, right? So with the present model, which is no longer what I'm writing down here, I'll show it to you once I'm getting into explanation. But with the new model, for every exam which you go to a Pearson VUE Center to go and test, you would have a specialist badge for it. I'll explain it further once I get down, except your CCNA. So this applies for everything except CCNA. For the CCIE, how incremental recognition has affected it is that at the moment, we don't have CCIE written for CCIE anymore. We actually just have something called a core exam. I'll come back and explain what a core exam is to you. Yes, you also now have the ability to start from anywhere you want. What that just means is there's no longer just to go straight. For the CCIE folks, you probably were already aware of this, but like I said, this is the main levels of certification. If you're going for your CCNA, obviously there were no prerequisites, you're just an associate coming into the market. So you just were coming in, there were no prerequisites to come into the market, right? But for the CCNP, it was usually where the challenge was. So it means that if I was a network engineer who decided not to write certification for like maybe 4 or 5 years of my networking career, or now I'm at the professional level of certification, I still needed to come back to your CCNA to write before coming back to CCNP, which was quite tough for a lot of people who were stuck, who already had professional knowledge. But for the CCIE folks, I'm sure you're quite aware that there was no prerequisite for CCIE. So now the same thing that used to happen for the CCIE, where there were no prerequisites, is now what we are transferring on to CCNP and obviously CCNA, which was already there. So right now you can start from CCNA, you can start from CCNP, you can start from CCIE, any level of certification you want. Now there's another concept we call badging now for training courses. So if you take some certain trainings, you'll be able to get a badge. And the other system that this really works well for is for people who presently have specified CCNAs. I'm talking about like maybe CCNA, routing and switching, or security, or data center, or wireless, or service provider. I'll explain this deeper when I get into the CCNA aspect of this session. But what you just need to know that right now, we only have one CCNA. So anyone who has a CCNA routing and switching presently would be able to, after the certification date, which is February, I think 23rd, 2020. After this certification date, anyone who has the routing and switching, right, will still get a CCNA certificate or a CCNA. Yes, we'll still get a CCNA certificate, but now you will receive a badge in routing and switching, or you receive a badge in security, or you receive a badge in data center, showing that you have demonstrated learning skills towards that. So the next thing here is just to give you a full update. So the next thing here is for the full update. I think I already mentioned in my last slide, this is the last certification date for the changing exams. So if you are currently in process of writing your CCNA CCNP or even CCIE, you still have about, and when Cisco released this, it was about 8 months. But I'm assuming by now it's bordering around 7 months. So, but I think 7 months is still ample enough time for you to be able to test your certification and still gain your certification if you so require. The levels of certification hasn't changed. We're still talking about our normal CCNA, CCNP, and then CCIE. Now, what has changed mostly is in each of those exams or in each of those levels of exams, that's where we are experiencing some changes. There's a brand new CCNA. So yes, this is something I'll touch on it more. I'll emphasize more on it in the coming slides. But what you need to be aware now is there's the different CCNAs which we used to have before. We're talking about security, routing and switching. I'll discuss more on cyber ops because I've been seeing some different views online. Some people are saying Cisco has cancelled. Some people are saying no, cyber ops is still available. But from what I'm reading on the Cisco forums, it seems Cisco is keeping cyber ops. So let me know what you think about if Cisco is cancelling the cyber ops certification in the comments below. Or if you already have a cyber ops, how that would come to affect you if they're cancelling, if they're not cancelling it. But for basically all other tracks, service provider, collaboration, and the rest, all of this is being cancelled to just one CCNA. Everybody in the industry is just going to have just one CCNA. Moving on, CCNP certifications are now broken down into core and concentrations. I'll explain this further going down into the slides. CCIE now focuses on the entire life cycle, including design. So previously, as a CCIE, we usually didn't have design components in each of our exams, right? But now, no matter what CCIE you're taking, CCIE, in the new CCIE now is called infrastructure, not routing and switching anymore. So in the new CCIE infrastructure, whatever CCIE security, CCIE collaboration, there is now a 3-hour design component of it. It goes for 3 hours. Right now, actually, it's actually what do you call it? It's still the 8-hour exam, which we are all used to. So 3 hours for design, then 8 hours for the total exam, meaning just leaving 5 hours for us to be able to work with when it comes to implementing and optimizing the network. All certifications are now valid for 3 years, no longer for CCIs. It used to be active for just 2 years, then you get into a suspended year. But now Cisco is saying across board, all of their certifications are valid for 3 years now. every technology track would have programmability involved, meaning if you're doing security, there's going to be a CCNP security track for programmability. If you're doing collaboration, programmability. If you're doing service provider, programmability. So we'll have programmability for each and every one of the independent certification tracks. Continuing education now covers all certifications. So before, continuing education was usually gotten if you went to Cisco Live or you took some courses at Cisco Live and some other methods of getting continuing education. So as a CCIE before, you could use your continuing education to renew your CCIE. But what Cisco is doing now is spreading that all across board. So for your CCNA CCNP, everyone can now take advantage of continuing education. Move to the next slide. Okay, this is actually a really great slide. This is a high-level overview of where we are at the moment. What is remaining after, what certifications will be remaining after on February the 24th of 2020. The CCENT, I have to mention, this is not CCENT, but I'm just saying the CCENT, I didn't put in my previous slide, has now been retired, and I don't think that will be coming back anytime soon. So you need to scale up your skills. If you already have your first CCNT, you need to try and get the second one in 7 months before the renewal date. The associate, like I mentioned to you, there's now just one CCNA. There's no longer CCNA routing and switching, security, service provider collaboration, all of that. There's just one CCNA. That one CCNA, from Cisco's perspective, they're kind of saying, what does a normal network engineer need to go into a network, right? So they basically think it's too early for you in your career to be deciding if you want to be a security guy or a collaboration guy or X and Y or Z guy, right? So, so at this particular point, what they're trying to do is to just make sure every single thing a network engineer is supposed to know as an associate going into a network for the first time, this is what is being squeezed down. A lot of people have been mischaracterizing this as now all of the CCNAs have been put in one, but I'll explain that further. I know you're seeing something here, DevNet Associates. This is a different track entirely. So if I just rule a line over here, look at it this way, or yeah, just look at it this way for now. Everything you can see under here is basically engineering, right? But then we now have DevNet Associate and DevNet Professional. What DevNet Associate is or what DevNet, the DevNet series of exams, I'm still going to get into that later on, but you need to know that there's a new track of certifications now just for programmers, people who are keen about programming, automation or programmability when it comes to Cisco. Okay. So we have enterprise for CCNP. These are just the remaining tracks right now. Enterprise, CCNP collaboration, data center, security, service provider. This is all you have now under CCNP. For your CCIE, this is all you have. But I know some people might be getting confused if you're watching my screen that I have a CCIE enterprise infrastructure and another CCIE enterprise wireless. So where is CCIE routing and switching? So CCIE routing and switching is basically what became enterprise, and the enterprise now is now no. So CCIE routing and switching didn't just become enterprise. They switched. They basically merged CCIE routing and switching and CCIE wireless together. The logic which I was listening to Yusuf, I think that's the head of certification for Cisco, was saying something like, you can't go into an enterprise, proper enterprise network nowadays without having wireless. So at some point, it seems like enterprise and wireless have become one. So you're going to have two, hold on. So you're going to have CCIE enterprise infrastructure and CCIE enterprise wireless, right? So, but at the CCNP level, you just be having CCNP enterprise. This still has content from wireless and content from routing and switching, right? So yes, this basically splits into two different CCIEs. We see our usual collaboration, data center, security, and service provider, and then the almighty CCAR, the architect itself, still remains the same. Yes, another thing of note, CCD hasn't changed. Nothing has changed in CCD. So you just have to keep that in mind if you're a CCD candidate. Okay, so this is another quite great slide. I'll just use this to explain some concept. This still remains the same, like I initially mentioned. CCNA is just one exam now. Then, like I also mentioned to you, any exam that is written, that any written proctored exam except the CCNA will give you a specialist certification. So I'm going to dwell on this slide just quite a bit. You need to pay attention, especially if you're a CCNA candidate at the moment. So right now, what's going on? Before what we used to, so I'll use CCNP routing and switching as an example, RNS. Before 5:30. Before, if you're writing the routing and switching, you had to write your route exam, your switch exam, and your T-shoot exam, right? And like I explained initially, there wasn't necessarily an incremental recognition. If you passed your CCNP routing and switching, does not mean you could go and tell so many friends that, oh, okay, or you could even take it to your employer. These certifications were usually seen as a whole. So you couldn't get a badge for this, you couldn't get any certification for this, you couldn't put it up anywhere on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on any social media platform. But now that's changing with this new system of exam. So for any CCNP exam for it to pass, I'll still use the exact same one to explain to you again. Since CCNP routing and switching has become enterprise, for you to basically become CCNP routing and switching now, it's divided into something called the core exam, technology core exam, and then any one concentration. Right? I'll show you all the concentrations under enterprise quite soon. So the point here is you need to pass one technology core exam and then the concentration exam. So for example, if I was attempting enterprise, I needed to make sure I took the core exam, then I'll come here and I'll select any one of the core exams. Don't forget that I mentioned to you, at the end of the day, one of these concentrations in each and every track of the CCNP focuses on automation. Same thing similar here, or something similar here to with security, right? You write your security core exam and then you go ahead to pick any part of the any one of the concentration exams. Once you have those two exams together, you are now a CCNP. Why is this a good thing? So look at this. It means two different people can be CCNP security while having different versatile, sorry, not necessarily quite different. They all need to have the technology core exam in common. They both need to have the technology core exam. But it's quite possible this is security automation. This other little C we're seeing here is, let's assume it's VPN. This other little C we are seeing here is maybe the track for ICE. This other C we're seeing here is, let's say, for firewall or broken down with those sorts, right? That was how our previous CCNP security used to be broken down, right? But now, as a security engineer, all I have to do is basically come. Every single person who says is a CCNP security engineer needs to have passed the security core exam. So Cisco looks at it as some set of fundamental skills which every person who claims to be a professional in that track needs to have. So anything any of these concentration experts need to have, everything would be inside here. Then each of them would, then you can now select which one you want to specialize in. The reason why this is good is because when people used to complain, would usually complain to Cisco, why are you making me write 4 exams when I only need just one of those? Maybe I'm mainly an ICE guy or just VPNs. Why am I having to do any other thing except those VPNs? So Cisco kind of modularized it like this. So, and also the good thing is, if you take this ICE core exam, you get a specialist certification. If you take this VPN core exam, get a specialist certification. You take a firewall, you get a specialist certification, right? And something similar, if you also write just the core exam, you also get a specialist certification, but you need to have 2 of them to become a professional. I hope that's clear. Then lastly, this still ties a bit. This core exam still ties a bit into the CCIE. So before, for most CCIEs, I'm sure you're quite aware, you had to write CCIE written and then you write the lab exam, right? So Cisco basically did away, because also think about it, when you wrote your CCIE rating before, you couldn't also post it on social media, couldn't post it on different places explaining to people that, look, at least I have gotten one step further, right? So this still goes into the incremental recognition. So what happens here now is if you're going for CCNP Enterprise, you write one core exam and then the lab exam. So now, for example, for service provider, you need to write the service provider core exam, then you'll be ready to write the lab. Now, some people will be thinking, then why don't I just go ahead to write the expert exam? Now, not so fast. So Cisco assumes that before you get to the expert exam, you would have knowledge of each and every single concentration exam. So these exams are called concentration exams. These other ones are called technology core exams. So you have to understand the core of each and every one of those concentration exams from the way I understood it, before you can jump to the expert level. So it's quite possible that two different individuals, Mr. X takes maybe service provider technology core exam, another Mr. Y takes the same service provider technology core exam. One of them goes ahead to just write one of the tracks in CCNP, and he's able to certify himself as a CCNP specializing in that track. But then the Mr. Y who went to also write the service provider core exam decided to attempt the lab and he passed. Mr. Y has become CCIE, but Mr. A is now CCNP, right? So, but that also means that Mr. Y had to have had core knowledge of each and every one of these concentration exams, or at least what service provider is entirely about. And yes, so this is another great thing which Cisco is doing, which is quite great. Each of these tracks contain a concentration exam for programmability automation, like I've mentioned, right? Well, by the time you write each of those, you also basically earn a DevNet specialist. That's on the programmer side, right? So if you come to the DevNet side and you then take the DevNet core exam, what that automatically will do for you is you can become a CCNP DevNet, CCNP DevNet, right? All the way from the engineering tracks, but you specialize on automation on one of those engineering tracks, and then you took the core exam over here. So I feel it's pretty great, and it's really good for what we are trying to achieve. So like I've explained already, these no longer exist. You can see I start the CyberOps because it's still in a bit of a limbo. But right now we only have a CCNA DevNet and your normal CCNA, just CCNA, not CCNA anything, just CCNA, not routing and switching, not security, not just CCNA. And this is going to be the exam code for it. Moving on. Let me see which of these I haven't touched already. There is a new CCNA development which is for developers. I think I've mentioned that. If you have a retired CCNA certification, you get a learning badge in the new CCNA certification. So yes, I think I've explained that, but just since we are here at the CCNA, let me also touch on that a little bit more. So the CCNA certification, if you have CCNA RNS at the moment, when it reaches 23rd of February, or by 24th of February 2020, what happens is you now have a new CCNA, and then you'd also have a badge, a learning badge for the skill which you had already gathered before. So let's say maybe in the same routing and switching. So you get a learning badge for routing and switching. Your current certification is still valid and will be active until expiration date. So if you wrote your exam, if your exam is supposed to expire, so this is coming out February, right? So if your exam is expiring in March of 2020, right? What will happen is your exam will still expire this exact same date too. So nothing is going to change. You need to get recertified on or before. You need to get recertified on or before, yes, the same March, so it doesn't change. CCNA will no longer be a prerequisite for CCNP. I think I had gone through that. I had mentioned that. All certifications have 8-month transition period. Yes, so this was at the time of the release. So I'm guessing now it's probably going to be like 7 months, but you can still do it. So if you can gather the time and gather the energy, I'd really recommend you go ahead to still go for exams, because the only thing you can do differently now is going to have to wait. So you're going to wait 8 months. Then when the exam is being released, maybe you start learning from the new curriculum before you can test it. It might take you almost a year. So I'll just advise you go ahead with this. Continuing education credit now available for CCNA. I think I did touch on that. Okay, let's move to the next slide. The old topics from the CCNA. These are the old topics. So the main difference here actually is these two. Basics of automation and network programmability and security fundamental skills. So if you're going to a network for the first time, you need to at least have some basic security fundamentals, right? So this is not to say that they carry the entire CCNA security and put it into the CCNA. No, you just need to understand some security fundamentals. Okay, so we've gotten into the CCNP. The CCNP, there are about a couple of tracks in the CCNP. This was the old CCNP. So like I said, all of this does not exist anymore. Sorry, I think for the exception of, no, yeah, so this is actually all gone. This is actually all gone. This is only still there to the CCIE level. So we have the CCDE still on, but the CCDP isn't existing anymore, right? Cisco now focuses all of their energy into these 5 main architectures, right? Then you now still have the professional version of the DevNet. Notable changes to the CCNP. So notable changes to the CCNP. Okay, I think I mentioned this. 1 core exam and 1 concentration exam. You can take the core exam. Yeah, you can also take the core and the concentration exam in any order. So you don't have to write the core first before writing the concentration, or the concentration first before writing the core. With every certification, you earn a specialist badge. Specialist certification can remain up to 3 years while attempting the core exam. So yeah, you can just get, so that's quite nice actually. So imagine I could just certify myself if I was a CCNP security before. I'll just certify myself in just ICE for the moment. And I have 3 years after getting this ICE certification for me to think about writing the security core exam, right? So if I now write the security core exam, I can now become my CCNP. Right, but this takes about, you have a 3-year period for you to be able to do this. So, and I feel it's quite great actually. Yeah, I think I also mentioned the core exam for any technology track can function as a CCI rating for that track. I think I didn't mention that. Continuing education will now be available for CCNP. All right. Yeah, so this is quite a good slide that has a lot of information to basically let you understand some of the things I've been talking about. So for example, I've been talking a lot on security, so I think let me highlight security. All the bullet points you can see here are all of the exams you can write for your as a CCNP security. You obviously still have your core exam there, right? Then you can also now choose to focus on firepower or VPN or securing email with Cisco security appliances, or securing the web with Cisco web security appliance, or implementing and configuring Cisco identity service, and that's the ICE, automating and programming Cisco solutions. So for you to become a CCNP security now, you just have to pass this exam and any one of all of these exams. Same applies here to the CCNP Enterprise, same applies to the service provider collaboration. So you might just want to pause my screen or to pause the video to just check out depending on what your area of specialization is on the new tracks. Okay. All right, sorry, give me a second. All right, finally, the bottom one. Okay. So CCIE, this was the old track outline. It hasn't really changed much except for the fact that enterprise has now been consolidated into wireless and infrastructure. So as a CCIE enterprise now, if you're going for the CCIE enterprise exam, you either choose wireless exam or the infrastructure exam. Infrastructure exam is basically what we used to call routing and switching, right? Wireless is the new consolidated track that has been put into enterprise. You still have your security, you still have service provider, collaboration, and data center. Okay, so if you're an active CCIE, your suspended CCIE will be converted to an active year. So that is also quite confusing. So, because even for myself, I was trying to calculate sometime and it was confusing. So, but I'll explain to you with my own certification date. Previously, when I was recertifying, I passed my first ever exam January 29th, 2016, right? So we always had a 2-year validity period, 2 years validity period. So what that meant was that by January 29th, 2018, I needed to have recertified again. If not, I'll go into what is called a suspended state. And this state used to last for 1 year, right? So maybe the next one will be January 29, 2020, which is actually my recertification date. So I have to see how I'll work on that. I have a couple of months though. So, but now what Cisco is saying is that I shouldn't even have to worry. I'm saying that was normally, right? I would have to have worried that by January 29, 2020, I would have to have recertified. But Cisco is saying that no, instead of this 2-year period and then 1 year suspension, we'll merge everything and just make it generally 3 years, right? And with those 3 years, what you'd have is, for someone like me, this will change to 2021. Instead of 2 years, now it's going to be 3 years, 2021. So there's no longer a concept of suspended state anymore. Then something else Cisco is quite emphasizing on now. I think for all certifications, they tried to point this out a couple of times. For all certifications, the CCIE certification will now be on the event date. On the event date, what does that mean? So before there was what they call anniversary date, which was basically the dates I like for myself was January 29th. So even during the course of the year, whenever I wrote my certification, even if I wrote it in October of, so let me just draw that out again so that it's quite descriptive. 29, 2016, 29, 2018, 29, 2020. So what happened here was, whenever I wrote this exam, so for example, I obviously did not recertify my CCIE on January 29, 2018. But if you check my portal, that's when it became renewed, right? I probably wrote it, let's say, in November of 2017, going into 2018, right? So let's say I wrote it November 2017. Cisco is saying with this, their new method, instead of using these anniversary dates as your renewal date, your new dates, renewal date is going to be what is the event date. Event date meaning if I wrote my exam on November 2020, by November 2017, and let's say it was still valid for just those 2 years, the next time I was supposed to have recertified it to be November 2019. And the next, if between this November 2017 and November 2019, I chose to recertify by June of 2019, what would happen is that my next recertification date was going to be June You add 2 more years to that, June 2021. Right? This is assuming that it's still 2 years, not 3 years anymore. So I hope that concept is quite clear now. So we've gone through this. Yeah, for an emeritus who has maintained his CCIE for more than 20 years, he now gets what is called a new emeritus lifetime tenure. I mentioned this CCIE route in this non-technology core exam. And yes, so this is what I was trying to describe initially in my first couple of slides, where I said is now every CCIE lab format is now in 2 modules, design module and the deploy, operate, and optimize module. What Cisco is trying to achieve is trying to make sure that their experts are end-to-end experts. Because most times, if you look at it before, your CCIE, as a CCIE, you were mainly coming from the point of post-sales, right? So you're just there to deploy, operate, and then optimize, right? So but now CCIE, they are making sure that you are now going through the entire product life cycle, beginning from design, which will now take about 3 hours of your time. The certification is now 3 years, I've mentioned that, and will be on event dates.